Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 6 of this video series, How to Be a Doctor in the UK. Today we have Apurva again with us, who's going to talk about some Rota related questions about leaves and some other miscellaneous topics. This is the last video of this series. If you still have any questions after this, please let us know in the comment section. So, Apurva, first question today is, how does the Rota work in generally? Tell us a bit more about that. How many
Hi,
hours it
everyone.
is, how many nights we do. As in, we're talking about things specific to emergency medicine here again.
Okay, perfect. I think, this is a slightly complex question because there are like so many things involved in this, but generally, probably across all specialties, you work for approximately 40 to 48 hours on an average per week. This
Okay.
might be split in different ways depending upon how your rota is. And the exact number of hours depends on your contract as well. But I don't think you'll be working more than 48 hours in any specialty per week. Also, the number of nights you do also depends on your contract, at what level you're joining, which specialty you're in, and so many different things. Probably if you're in emergency medicine, the number of night shifts will be slightly more because of the nature of work. So coming to the shift pattern itself, I think most of the hospitals do a 10 to 12-hour shifts. I think there are few 8-hour shifts as well, but usually the shifts are for 10 hours long. And some hospitals, probably some smaller hospitals or district hospitals, do a 12-hour shift pattern as well. So it's generally like you do a set of like 4 days or 4 nights or 3 days and 3 nights, and then you get a couple of offs, and then you start working again.
Right.
To
And
add on to that, some of the hospitals
okay.
Also have now adopted something called as a self-rota system or self-rostering system,
Yeah.
wherein the general rules are still the same. You still work between 40 and 48 hours, but you can choose which day exactly you want to work. So basically what happens is you bring up the entire rota for all the staff in your grade on the calendar, and then you choose shifts where you want to work. But again,
Okay.
the general rules of total number of hours, how many shifts can you work in a row at a time, there are a few guidelines and rules you need to follow. But having
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
in mind, you can kind of choose which shift you want to work with like consensus from all the other colleagues as well. So the good thing about that is, so if you want off on some day, you can have a chat with other colleagues and then decide not to work on that day, and then you can work some other shift whenever you want to work.
I think there was a nice infographic by BMA about the specifics of Rota. It's just a single page infographic.
Yeah.
So we'll leave that in the
description
box for the viewers. Coming to the second question, how many leaves do we get annually?
Okay.
Just again, this is
So again,
rough number.
There is no definite one number. So it can probably, roughly, it is probably about between 25 and 30 per year. Again, how it is distributed depends on your rota. Some places do kind of standardized annual leave pattern, unless you have any specifications. Like if you work for 2 months and then you get a week of annual leaves, or 15 days of annual leaves, and then again after 2 months you get some. But
so it's essentially
some hospitals
it's fixed in your rota. The annual leave is
fixed in your rota.
Fixed in the rota, and you can choose which rota slot you want.
Yeah.
But once you're in that slot, you can't really choose other days of annual leave. You still need to take that when it falls in your slot. Okay.
Yeah. Having said that, it's not very hard and fast rule. So you can request whenever, if you want a different set of annual leaves to your standard rota, you can request it, but your request has to be well in advance, like before 6 weeks or 8 weeks,
typically,
so that they can arrange whatever you want.
Okay.
And also coming to study leaves, you also get a few study leaves. Again, the exact number of study leaves depends on which trust you're working in and the departmental policy, but you do get some study leaves as well. And you also have something called as a study budget. So the trust or the hospital recruiting you can sponsor for any of the relevant courses you want to do. So there is again, the exact amount differs from hospital to hospital and trust to trust, but you get some study budget, probably about £400 or £800 or whatever it is.
Pounds a year
Yeah,
for a year.
Per year, yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably cover one course because the courses are quite expensive.
Yeah.
ALS, ATLS cost about £500 to £800.
True.
For a single course, of course. And that will take all of your study budget. And just to briefly mention there, I think, not sure if we have touched this on our previous, any of our previous videos, you also get something called as a relocation allowance. If you're moving, it's worth checking with the hospital if you're getting some amount, some reimbursement for the relocation. Sometimes they pay for your tickets, your visa, your IELTS or GMC, initial accommodation for 2 weeks. So the hospital, sometimes they do cover up, sometimes they get like £4,000 or £5,000 for that. Now don't quote me on that amount, but that's typically what I've heard.
Yeah.
So it's worth checking with the hospital before you make the move.
Yeah, perfect.
Moving on. Oh, most important question. What is the average salary of a middle grade now? When I was there back in India, it didn't make much sense for me when people say like you get like £75,000. So if I divide 75,000 by 12, it's like about £6,500 or £6,000. How much do we get monthly as a middle grade registrar or as a middle grade doctor, specialty doctor in A&E per month after all the taxes? Now again, please don't quote us on that. This is a rough number and this keeps changing. A lot of nuances around this.
Also, there are like too many calculations and tax related stuff
with the taxes,
and the contract related stuff involved in this. So if your brain is not good at processing numbers like mine, I think this might be a difficult task. But to make things a bit easier, so I think roughly if you're joining as a middle grade or say registrar level in most of the departments, you get salary somewhere between, again, this is a rough amount, £3,500 to £4,000 after deduction of all your taxes. Again, it might be a bit less, it might be a bit more, depending upon the place of work, your kind of contract amount, and the number of shifts you do, a number of night shifts you do, and so many different things. But that's a rough amount, probably around £3,500 and £4,000 after deduction of all the taxes.
So 3,500 to 4,000.
Yeah.
Fine. That's good. Cool. Next question. What are the initial expenses that I should think of when I come to UK for the first time? How much cash or how much money spare money should I have to cover the initial couple of weeks or initial month and a half before I get my first salary?
Okay. So again, there's no right or wrong answer to this.
Yeah, but just a rough thing. Yeah.
Initial expenses usually are, until you get your first salary, are paying for your accommodation, the rent for the first month, and your food expenses. If you're eating outside, then that might be slightly costly. So again, I'm just giving you a rough number.
I would say it's very, very costly if you eat outside.
Yeah, it is very, very costly if you compare it to the food in India. So it is very costly. I'll just throw in a rough number. Again, this might be very different to different people and what their expenses are. But from probably my experience, if you have probably about 3 lakhs for your first month, that should be sufficient to cover all your expenses. I mean, it's not that you need 3 lakhs every month in the UK. It's just that because you're moving in for the first time, you have so many expenses. And I think 3 lakhs should be sufficient to cover all.
Yeah, I should probably just carry a bit more.
If you have any different perspective.
Yeah, no, I would agree. It also depends a lot on your lifestyle. Like you're depending on what kind of places you're going out to eat.
Yeah.
But one piece of advice from me would be, if you want to save money, you probably learn how to cook and then come around, because food is quite expensive.
Yeah.
It all depends on what kind of places you go out to eat, and but 3 lakh, or which is about £3,000, roughly about £3,000 today. I would definitely quote that number.
To give you a rough idea about the food, so if you go to a hotel anywhere, even, I mean, may not be a very posh or a big restaurant, but even if you go to a small place, it would still cost you about 10 pounds, at least 10 pounds per person for one meal, or probably even more than that.
Yeah, I would say depend like 5 to 10 pounds a person if you take a burger or a kebab to from a takeaway. So 10 pounds per meal. So I would say about 20 to 25 pounds a day per person.
Yeah.
And depends if you're coming with your partner, if you have kids, so just carry a bit more to be on the safer side. You mentioned about accommodation. How do we find an accommodation? Because should we start that process once we are physically here, or can we start that whilst we are in India when everything is sort of confirmed, my tickets are confirmed, and my date of flying is confirmed?
So
how does that work?
First thing is for your first few weeks of accommodation, like say at least for first 2 weeks, I think it is better if you request the recruitment agency or your trust to arrange for an accommodation. Because that's going to be a nightmare if you don't have an accommodation when you reach here, and you'll have to do all by yourself, like booking a hotel or something. So I think they're generally reasonable, and they will be able to arrange for first 2 weeks of accommodation. So looking for the accommodation, for example, say a rented house in the UK, is not very complex, and it is quite simple. So you can start looking for houses when you're in India. When you have like you said, a flying date, you can start looking for houses. The simplest way to do is online. So there are different websites, but probably from my experience and from experience of others, the most reliable website is called rightmove.co.uk. We can give a link in the description. So it kind of lists all the properties which are available for rent in UK. If you enter the PIN code number or the code of the place where you're going to stay, it will give you all the properties that are available for rent. And you have like all of the websites, you have different filters, and you can filter what type of house you want and what is your budget, and then you can choose houses. So how it works is usually the properties in the UK are managed by like property management agencies. So if there are contact numbers for agencies below each listing, and if you like a house and if you think that that's something you would want to live in, you can make a list of a few houses and give them a call, and they will give you an appointment for viewing of the house. It is usually free. You don't have to pay them anything for viewing the house. And on that specific day, you can just go to the address and they'll show you the house. And if you like the house, you can just put in an application, and within a couple of days or probably a week or so, they'll let you know if it is approved or not. And usually for getting the like house, you will have to pay the first month rent as in advance.
In advance.
Yeah.
So it's about typically, for example, about £1,500 you'll need to pay for the first month. Sometimes they ask for a month and a half of rent, so you might end up giving them 1,500 or 2,250 for security deposit, which you will get back once you move from that property. I think in the current climate, most people are just doing video viewings, and you can probably choose a house from India if you have a date. It's worth discussing this with your, as you said, the recruitment agency. They might be able to help you with some hotel accommodation, but you can obviously download Rightmove app and start looking for properties, select a few. In fact, when you're coming here, just select a few appointments a day after you're arriving here. If they're doing kind of in-person appointments or viewings, but otherwise most of them is on video now, and they're pretty quick in responding to emails rather than, I think, making a phone call will again be a bit tricky from India. And more expensive as well.
To add on to that, a lot of people ask, what is the house rent per month in the UK? So again, it depends on which place you're working. So house rents are quite expensive in major cities or like central areas of the towns and cities. So it's quite expensive in London or any other major cities, probably more expensive than other places in London, like if you're living in central London. So generally, to give you again a rough estimate, for a 2-bedroom house, it might range somewhere from at least 700 pounds until whatever the higher level you can go, probably about 1,500 or 1,800 or whatever. So, but I think roughly somewhere around 1,000 if you're living in the city or somewhere around the city.
Yeah, I would probably say in London it'll be difficult to find a 2 bedroom in like 1,000 now. I
Yeah,
was looking
exactly.
at them last month. So probably you're looking at 1,500 if you're looking for a decent two
Yeah,
bedroom property. So
yeah,
that's again rough numbers. You can get a better idea from Rightmove. They
yeah,
generally mention
true.
the rent there and other specifics of the house. They have parking or not. If they have furnished house, it's better to take a furnished house rather
Yeah,
than getting all your stuff. So that's again an
true.
important point. Look for a furnished property. All right. So next question is how to open a bank account in the UK.
Mhm. I think it's quite simple. So once you are in the UK, once you get your, once you finish all the initial formalities in your hospital, just contact the HR department in the hospital, and they can give you a letter saying that you've been recruited in the hospital and mentioning your average annual salary. And then if you produce that letter in any bank, the registration process is quite straightforward, and they should be able to do that in probably about a week or so, even less than that probably. And you will get a credit card as well as a debit card with a bank account.
Sounds good. So that seems straightforward. You just need a letter from the hospital stating your salary. So
Yeah.
that'll decide which sort of bank account you will get.
Yeah.
Uh, Coming to the next question, how long will it typically take for someone to adjust to the NHS, to the new system, new hospital, new protocols, guidelines? Typically, again, depends on the
So
individual, but how much time will it take roughly for a person?
yeah, the reason for this question is I think the system, how the medical system works in the UK is entirely different when compared to India. So although you may know the medical stuff, the non-medical stuff is too overwhelming, to be honest. So I think it
Yeah,
would at least take about 3 months to understand what's going on around you and how different processes and things work. But it might even take longer, probably to understand in a reasonably good way. Probably usually takes about at least 6 months, I think.
yeah, I would just say 6 months,
Yeah,
3 months. Yeah, because everything is new. There are a lot of protocols,
yeah,
guidelines. You'll need to figure out more about the disposition.
yeah,
You will know what to do with the
yeah,
patient, how to treat the patients, about
yeah,
disposition, arranging follow-up, who goes where,
yeah,
who admits what, that sort of thing, and
yeah, true.
to familiarize yourself with the hospital guidelines.
Yeah,
That's the key, and you should follow the guidelines. If you're not following them, you should really have a good reason to back that up, and
yeah,
probably
true.
should speak to a consultant
Yeah,
to
and also
start
I
with.
think you will find it a bit difficult initially to understand the language, the
Yeah,
slangs, different slangs, the work culture, how people present themselves, and so many different things. So I think there
no,
will
no,
be too many
absolutely,
things that would be kind of going across your mind. So I think it will take a bit longer.
absolutely. We'll probably throw your um, link on the Desi lingo that you did on the blog.
Yeah.
So we'll leave that for the viewers to have a read through. Uh, all right. Next question: are people generally helpful and friendly? Yeah,
Yes, I think like all other places in the world, people are generally very friendly and helpful. So if you
most
have
people are
any
nice.
questions, don't
Yeah,
hesitate asking the questions, and people will help you out. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Again, most people are nice, but you'll get some different characters like everywhere else. But most
yeah,
people are generally
obviously,
nice,
yeah,
very helpful and friendly.
yeah,
Uh, Now the last question of this series, and in my opinion, in my mind, this is the most important question.
yeah.
Will I get Indian food in the UK?
I think this is the most important question out of all the questions we have covered until now, because we love our spices. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yes, I think I had this doubt before coming to the UK as well. But as soon as I landed here, it felt like the Indian eating places or the Indian restaurants are everywhere. Like even if you go to a very small town or a very small village, anywhere in the corner of the UK, you will find an Indian restaurant. So yes, you will find Indian food everywhere.
In London, you'll probably not even realize that you
Yeah,
are away from India
yeah,
if you ignore the bills because
yeah,
it's quite expensive. So again, my advice would be you should know probably how to cook, and that will save you a lot of money in the
yeah.
long term. Even in places like up north, we are in Edinburgh, and I was again like, we get like a lot of Indian food. Are there many Indian options in Edinburgh? So there are lots and lots of them. Again, you can check it out on Google. There are tons of Indian restaurants there.
And also
So
Indian
that
shops
shouldn't
as
be a
well if you
problem.
want to buy Indian stuff.
I would, in my experience, you can get stuff here that you don't get in India.
Yeah, true.
Well, so yeah, so there are plenty of options, especially in cities like London, Manchester, Birmingham, a bit less in Edinburgh, but yeah, there are plenty of options, restaurants and Indian grocery stores and stuff. So don't worry about that at all. I think that's it. Do you have anything else to add?
Probably not. So if you have any more questions, we're happy to answer. You can just leave it in the comment section and we'll come up with the answer. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Apurva. Thank you. We hope this was helpful for you, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.